American World Series. It's going to be a good series. That's Houston's tough. Disappointed in the Yankees. They kind of, you know,
TV over there. We're trying to follow it.
exactly, yeah.
The boat's going down the river, you hit a spot, you got covered, and then you hit a spot you don't have any cover.
He's wandering around the boat doing this thing.
Trying to figure out whether he can pick up the score.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the meeting of the Poquoson Planning Commission for Monday, October 21st. And the first thing we'll do is call this meeting to order, and we'll open with an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So if you will stand, if you would like to stand and join us, you're welcome to do so. We'll be saying prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who temptation, but deliver us from evil, for glory forever. Amen. Okay, we'll move to the first item on our agenda, and that is the approval of the minutes. We had a work session on September 16th, 2019. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as written?
I make a motion to accept those minutes as written.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, Karen?
Okay. Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver?
Aye.
Commissioner Travis?
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Emmett?
Aye.
And Chairwoman Shriver.
Aye.
That message was carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you. And the next are the minutes for the regular session, also held on September 16th, 2019. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as they are written? Second? All right. Karen?
Commissioner Emmett?
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Travis?
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Chairwoman Shriver.
Aye.
That motion was carried by a vote of 6-0.
All right, thank you, Karen. We're going to have the audience for visitors now, and I will just say, before we get into the audience for visitors, we welcome any comments that you wish to make. If they are in reference to the items that we are going to be considering tonight, I would ask that you're welcome to come forward and say what you would like to say in the audience for visitors, which normally we say we've had the public hearing, but in this case, we certainly would welcome it, and especially if you have something new to offer, because we did hear a lot of comments in the public hearing, which we certainly took to note. So, you know, welcome to come forward, but we appreciate it if you would give us new information if you have something. We're very well versed on this. So at this time, if you have something you would like to address the Planning Commission, and it certainly doesn't have to be anything. If you have something in regard to something else in the city, you're certainly welcome to come forward. And if you would be so kind as to give Karen, the clerk, your name, your address, puts that in the minutes. So at this time, we welcome anyone who would like to come forward and have direct comments to the Planning Commission. Okay, if we have no one that wishes to address the Planning Commission and the audience for visitors, we will close that and we will move on to the old business. which this is continued consideration of the following items requested by the Big Woods Development Company, LLC, regarding the legacy of Poquoson Plan Development, Poquoson Tax Map Parcels Numbers 17-1-22A, 18-1-121A, 27-1-1, 27-1-2, 27-1-4, 27-1-7, 27-1-8, 27-1-9A, 27-1-11, 27-1-12, 27-1-22A, 27-1-83, 27-1-84, 27-1-129A, 27-12-4, 27-12-5, 27-13-A, 27-13-B, zoned planned development, mixed-use, PUD MU, multi-use. Wiley is going to give sort of a little presentation, because we have had a lengthy one at the last meeting, but he will go over these things again and give us a concise consolidation. Thank you, Wiley.
Okay, not to completely rehash everything we talked about at the work session, but I just kind of wanted to go over a few PowerPoint slides just to cover that. A question was asked during the work session is where the outline of proffers came from. I just wanted to point out that in the staff report, it does mention that the proffers that were approved on August 24th, 2015 are covered under Article 10 of the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions that follow the approval resolution, and that was in Attachment 2. So I just wanted to clarify that. I mentioned they were in the covenants and restrictions, but I didn't mention the article. And of course, this also refers to the outline of proffers. Essentially, what this proffer amendment is about is delaying the building permits for the construction of the clubhouse and the pool until and moving that from the 80th single-family and/or townhome building prior to the 80th building or townhome building, and moving it to prior to the 147th single-family and/or townhome building permit. So that's the change. The change in there is basically 67 units, moving it forward. Let's see, this is the master plan, and if my pointer was working, I'd be able to tell you that the clubhouse, and I guess I can kind of tell you, clubhouse and pool are down in that area as part of the 80th building permit, which would have happened probably somewhere in that area. We'd have to build that Legacy Boulevard back to that area and build that clubhouse and pool. The applicant has provided some rationale for the proffer amendment that basically have to do on the revenue side and the need to sell lots to recoup money, and in terms of the cost of construction for the clubhouse and pool, extending Legacy Boulevard and paying for wetlands permits. Again, nothing that hasn't been talked about before, but just recapping some key points for the proffer amendment. The result of this proffer amendment, if granted, will be to effectively postpone construction of the clubhouse and pool into a future phase of the project containing townhome or single-family development, which the application lists as Phase 2. There's a number of phases that were sort of outlined when this thing first got approved. Depending on the order of site plan and/or development plan, this could be a significant amount of time. There is no timetable for the construction of Phase 2 or any phase incorporating townhome and/or single-family dwellings. And the last bullet point, there's no guarantee that Phase 2 or any future phase will be built. I believe the applicant did speak to that in some detail at the last meeting, the public hearing, basically saying that they've incurred enough costs that if there's no way they're going to be able to cease at the end of Phase 1 and be able to recoup anything close to the kind of money that they need to. Anyway, that's basically what I've got for the proffer amendment. Kind of a brief sum up, but.
I would comment that, not really a question, but as I mentioned at the work session, I guess what we're saying here is, we're still talking about bringing in 146 families with no recreational facilities on site, when that is a specific part of the planned use development, on-site commercial and recreational facilities. So as I said, that I would be happy to consider something that said something along the lines of, perhaps we build one of those by the time we get to the 80th unit, and the second one later on, or something like that. But I just really can't see the fairness of putting the whole thing off, when that was, I think, a key element for when this whole project was approved in the first place. That's my opinion only.
And frankly, I tend to agree with Mr. Travis, only indicated, by the builders, but landowners, that this would occur. And it seemed offer perhaps to, make the whole proposition in better light, and now to withdraw that contra to the original plan.
In regard to other developments that have occurred where they would have, they have a clubhouse and pools and things of that nature, I'm wondering if they are not in, I'm not going to say the latter phase, but the later phases. I kind of would think they would be. And I'm not a developer, but I'm thinking that probably they would not ever be anything otherwise. I mean, I'm just thinking it sounds logical that they would be. And I'm not a developer, so I don't know. I've never developed anything in my life, but to me, it just seemed like it was more logical.
Yeah, so I agree probably what you were saying.
I'm not familiar.
At the end of the day, this is, okay, now we'll get.
I don't know.
I agree with that, too.
Yeah, I'm just thinking along those lines, and I would like to ask people who are developers, I guess, and they know, because they've certainly done it before. Something on this scale, this is a larger scale project probably than some that certainly we have had. This is almost like it's going to be a lot larger than we've had previously. We have the villas, which had clubhouse and various things, and I'm just wondering if if it isn't so unusual. Now, I guess maybe they would be willing to make some adjustment, I don't know, to the numbers here. Maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. Would that be more palatable?
I guess I was reassured by Mr. Myers in the presentation at the last meeting that there would be activity started on the clubhouse and pool midway through the completion of after Lot 80. And to me, I think that would show a good faith effort that it was going to be completed within Phase 1. Is that my understanding?
Yes, I mean, we do have to start working on it. It takes quite a bit of time. We do have our whole team here this evening. Brian Stevenson, who's the project engineer, and maybe that's consultant. I guess maybe I'd like to address, if I may, Mr. Travis's question.
Microphone going, Joe? Yeah.
And forgive me for what I just said about, so, I mean, that, I know last time, I think somebody mentioned something about that.
So, I mean, it would have to be completed and ready for occupancy before we have 146, but you can't, obviously, if we were to stop at 146, and before we ever got into the future phases, we would have this gap of a year where we're just sitting there dead in the water. With regard to building one versus the other, Mr. Travis, the real issue, the real cost involved in this, going into phase two, is not just the cost of the pool and the clubhouse, but we have to, every time we move into a new phase, and that is considered, we are obligated under our wetlands permit to pay for all the wetland mitigation for that phase, which I don't have that number handy, Julie, it's over $1 million, isn't it, right around, so that's about $1 million in mitigation that we pay. We do have about $2 million in land cost in the back that we have to recoup. And then the other thing is, you'll see, we also have to build Legacy Boulevard from the terminus of phase one all the way back to the pool and the clubhouse, a good portion of which is single-fronted because of the preserved wetland area. So if you wouldn't build the pool without the clubhouse, because you wouldn't have any restroom facilities. But if you built the clubhouse and you paid the mitigation and you built Legacy Boulevard all the way back there, the difference between the pool is like, not much. So it would just, from a financial standpoint, you build it all, you design it with one integrated site plan. We would hire one general contractor who would deliver a turnkey recreational product to us. So to try to split it up would be, wouldn't save any money.
Thank you, that was my ultimate question.
Yeah, it really wouldn't save any money or really help us, so. But, Ms. Fenixon, did I answer your question?
Well, I guess I felt reassured in the last meeting that the clubhouse would pretty much be complete, and pool would be completed by the end of phase. Our
We would have to.
activities, right?
Yeah.
And so, to me, for potential residents there, that's showing a good faith effort that progress is being made on, rather than, having no guarantee of phase two. I was reassured that it would be pretty well completed.
Well, yes,
Phase one.
it should be relatively completed by then. It should be completed by then. The way all of these multi-phase projects work is you build through a section, but then before you sell out that section, you have to go into the next section. Otherwise, you lose sales momentum. So the very last thing we could ever have happen would be to build phase one and then stop, because that kills your momentum. So, yeah, it would be very foolish for us. And as was said, as Mr. Horton said, if we only built phase one, we would take an enormous bath on this thing. We probably wouldn't even build it, honestly. It's just, phase one does not make any money.
I have a question while you're up here regarding that. The Whitaker's Mill development, that's also under your purview or one of
Yes.
yours. Now, they feature the clubhouse very predominantly on all of their websites and marketing. Now, I don't think they have built too many townhomes. There are some that I saw that are built and some single family. Approximately what phase are they in?
We're about 70% built out.
About
We'll
70%?
be
Okay.
finished next year.
Okay, so that's further along than.
Yeah.
And when was the clubhouse finished on
We
that
built
one?
the clubhouse there up front.
Okay.
But what we did not have were all these attendant costs associated with that clubhouse. You're welcome.
Questions? All right, so ready to take a vote on this first one. Okay, and the first one is a request for a proper amendment timeline in which the community clubhouse and pool must be constructed from prior to the 80th single-family and/or townhome building permit to prior to the 147th single-family and/or townhome building permit. Phase one contains 146 townhomes and single-family homes. Okay, do motion on this one?
Make a motion to accept the proffer amendment as.
Have a second? All right, Karen?
Aye.
Travis?
No.
Commissioner Fenixon?
Aye.
Emmett?
No.
Chairwoman Shriver?
Aye.
That motion carried by a vote of 4-2.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read the second one. taken, and then Wally, you can, because I think we got out of order there. Okay, the second is a request for a rezoning amendment to approve townhome elevations that were not submitted with the original set of approved elevations.
Again, what I wanted to do here is just to show once again what the new architectural renderings are that were submitted versus what the existing one is. And this is only for townhomes. This does not concern anything else other than townhomes. So architectural renderings, here's an example of a composer rear load. I believe it's the Ryan home, if I'm not mistaken. This is a composer front load. So again, you know, the difference is basically window treatment on the bottom floor for the ones that are rear loaded, and of course you have the garage on the front loaded. There's some other designs as well. These are some additional designs, and I'm just going to kind of thumb through them. Some of them are more ornate than others, obviously. These are all, there's some front loads right there. And again, these would be rear load. And this is the previous one. This was a H.H. Hunt design. This was the one that got considered in 2015. Now, you'll notice that these have the open-air porches on the second floor, which is a nice feature. It looks nice anyway, and I'm sure it would be nice to have. The newer homes do not have this. The idea is to provide a variety of homes here and a variety of options. Not everybody's going to go for the highest-end model. Some of the models will be, I don't want to say low-end, but they won't be as high-end as the H.H. Hunt anyway. Staff's points for the rezoning amendment are that certainly the townhomes that are proposed offer a greater variety and a greater mix of townhomes. It is unclear what that mix would be. There is no percentage or there is no location given for each one of the different townhomes in this area. In addition, particularly the composer rear load and composer front load lack some of the features included on the H.H. Hunt townhomes submitted and approved in 2015, 8/24/15. Additional models are closer to that original, but lacking several features, most principally the open-air porches. So there's no question this provides a greater variety. Just as you proceed through here, and I don't think the applicants really nailed this down, just be aware that we don't really know what the variety is going to be or what the distribution is going to be. That'd be about the only thing that staff would say from that standpoint. That's all we got.
Okay, on the second one, do we have comments or questions that you need answered?
I had one quick question for Wally, which I forgot to ask the last meeting.
Sure.
Is this a request in lieu of or in addition to the previous one?
I read it to be in addition to. So these are additional on top of what was approved. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not getting rid of what we approved in 2015.
That's what I meant to ask you earlier. Thank you.
May I ask a question of the developer, please? And again, I apologize for keep going back to Whitaker's Mill, but it's something I think tangible that we can use as maybe an example. So from what I saw, a lot of those, the composer looks like is very similar to some of those at Whitaker's Mill. Is there just the Ryan home, so Whitaker's Mill, correct?
Yeah,
Not the
yeah.
HH.
Whitaker's Mill is a one-builder community.
It's a one builder, and do they have the variety that you've that you've presented here, or is it pretty much all the?
No, we offer two different types of
Just two.
models that are quite different in terms of price point. We have the three-story Composer series. We offer that both in a rear load and in a front load. And we also offer what's called the Griffin Hall model, which is a two-story with a downstairs master that has proven to be very, very attractive to, empty nesters in particular, because you have all one-story living, and then upstairs you have 2 bedrooms and a huge floored storage area. So we offer 2 different varieties there. Here, because this is such a large project, we've always talked about the possibility of having more than one builder. We don't want to shut that door. We want to have the opportunity to exist for other builders to come in. And all of these, we approve all of these before they're ever built as well. We do have non-monotony policies. We don't want to see just, plain vanilla after, so we're very particular about that. But I think, does that answer your question?
It does. So right now, you do have H.H. Hunt is in your plan with the
We're talking
potential of.
we're talking to a number of different builders. We haven't signed a contract with anyone yet because there are still these kind of issues. So, right now, we're talking to a number, but I could not say these will be in,
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, are we prepared to make a motion on this item?
So moved? Or I move that we accept it as written.
Okay, and a second?
Second?
Okay, Karen?
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon,
Aye.
Commissioner Travis,
Aye?
Commissioner Deaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Schreiber.
Yes.
That motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, and the third request is for a buffer modification to area number 1 on the submitted Legacy of Poquoson master plan to reduce the 40-foot perimeter buffer to 10 feet, which area may be included in recorded lots, but which shall remain undisturbed. Wally.
Thank you. This is the area, and again, I regret that my pointer's not working, but this area was added by comprehensive plan amendment to the area available for PUD-MU. However, this area adjoining it, the white property was not. So basically, this is abutting R1 zone property with no mixed-use overlay involved. This is a modification request pursuant to 8.2-2. The last part of the second paragraph of 8.2-2 allows for additional waivers or modifications of the requirements of the zoning subdivision site plan and sign ordinances, subsequent to the approval of the master plan. Of course, they have to be looked at by the Planning Commission, which we're doing tonight, and the City Council, which we'll do at a later date, depending on tonight. Anyway, so this was like a preamble to all the modifications. There are actually only 3 modifications that are left on the table for tonight. This is one, and we'll consider the 5-foot modification later for both the commercial area and the T turnaround. Just because this came up a lot in the last hearing, I did do a table, and I actually sat down and ciphered this out rather than trying to spit out numbers in a hurry. What we did, or what was approved in 2015 along the York County and City Hall properties was essentially a reduction of the 40-foot buffer, or a replacement, if you will, of the 40-foot required buffer with a 15-foot buffer to be composed of rear yard. So essentially, we imposed a 15-foot rear yard setback in these areas, and we said it was going to be landscaped. There was no provision for wooded, and in fact, we could still approve accessory buildings back in that area. So the buffer modifications that are presented this time around are, in fact, superior. If you're thinking about buffer preservation, are superior to the ones that were done back in 2015. That's an overall comment. I'll get into more specifics as far as buffer 1. Here's the approved master plan. The buffer modification 1 covers these areas right here. Okay, zoned R1, owned by Mr. White. And this is, and if you, well, again, 20 would be nice. But anyway, this is in Mr. Myers' handwriting, of what buffer modification number 1 is, so just so you know, I didn't make that up out of thin air. Lineal feet, 2,190 feet. The buffer required is a 40-foot buffer, which equals 2.01 acres in area. As I pointed out in the work session, this can be either landscaped or consist of a natural buffer. So they would have the option of essentially taking down the trees and replacing it with landscaped. Now, we don't have a definition of landscape in the zoning ordinance, but if you take a look at the general dictionary definition, landscape can be grass, can be flowers, trees, or shrubs. We do not have direction in our subdivision ordinance as to how many trees and how many shrubs per 100 linear feet we would require. But suffice it to say, any kind of replacement that we would have would still fall short of the benefits of a 10-foot undisturbed buffer by virtue of the fact that those are relatively mature trees, not old-growth forest, of course, but relatively mature. So there's two ways to look at this, and that's what I pointed out in the work session. One is that if they kept a 40-foot all in trees, there's no question that a 10-foot buffer is less. However, if they took advantage of the ordinance ability to do that in a landscape buffer, a 10-foot would actually, in all likelihood, provide more trees, both up front and into the future. Obviously, any new trees are going to be relatively young, relatively small, take a number of years to mature. So, two ways to look at that. Can't stress this enough. No additional lots over the limit of 238 single-family units, 108 townhome units, and 11 cottages established by approval of the master plan. This is an attempt to limit the loss of at least 8 lots due to buffers. The bottom line is they're going to lose a lot of lots because of design requirements such as stormwater size and various other environmental things, as well as zoning setbacks and things that we have to take, impose as requirements. This is adjacent to R1 area, which means that any abutting use is likely to be residential use. As I went through explaining a minute ago, could result in more trees wooded, a wooded area being preserved. Now, again, that all depends on whether they take advantage of the landscape, and it's too early to tell what they'll do because we're a long ways from looking at that particular issue on a site plan level. But 10-foot undisturbed area is proposed. That's about all I got. You go from there.
Questions of Wally?
So Wally, in essence, what you're saying is that it's up to the developer's discretion to identify specifically what the buffer.
Yes, at that time. If he does choose, the developer does choose to take down the existing trees, we would look at a landscape plan in lieu of that. Take a look at that. What we don't have is a lot of ordinance guidance on exactly what that land look like. We know we're going to want some trees, we're going to want some shrubs, but there's no real prescription. A lot of times in zoning ordinances, it's a pretty common thing for one canopy tree every X number of shrubs per 100. We don't have any of that kind of code. And even that is looking at really young trees that take a number of years to mature. That's all I was really trying to say. I'm not running from the fact that if they kept the 40-foot buffer and chose not to disturb it, certainly 40 foot is greater than 10 feet. I'm not running from that at all. I'm just pointing out another way of looking at it. That's all. And let me, one thing I didn't say on the podium, if I can, the 10-foot area is going to be included as part of the recorded lot. It's not going to be separate from the lots. It's going to be recorded, and they'll need to update their deed covenants and everything to take.
Questions? Any more discussion? Make a recommendation on this one.
Make a recommendation that we consider this as written.
Second?
Commissioner Emmett?
No.
Commissioner Fenix?
No.
Commissioner Travis?
No?
Commissioner Deaver?
No.
Aye. All right, that one, we'll move on to the next, which was a request for a buffer modification to Area 2. That has been withdrawn by the developer. So we will move to number 5, and that is a request for a buffer modification to Area Number 3 on the submitted legacy of the Poquoson Master Plan to reduce the 40-foot perimeter buffer to 5 feet in order to provide room for the development of the commercial space located along a portion of the Victory Boulevard frontage, as well as the required parking to serve this commercial space.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Modification number 3 is pertaining to the area of the proposed parking lot and the, one of the 2 commercial buildings situated on both sides of Legacy Boulevard, or advocated to anyway. So these are the areas affected by modification number 3. The request, and you can see it again in Mr. Myers' handwriting, that 3 over there in that corner. Basically, what we're talking about, and I want to point out before we get started, is that this is not going to be, in any way, shape, or form, is this going to impinge upon the 40-foot buffer that we had the applicant show. Now, obviously, when we get to the T turnaround, we'll talk about that in a minute. But in this area, this 40-foot buffer is going to be preserved, so there's no talk about encroachment in that area. This is the site plan we're looking at, and I only showed that just to show where we have imposed the 40-foot buffer in accordance with the ordinance requirements. So we're talking about 321 lineal feet. Buffer of 40 feet equals about 0.29 acres of open area, or buffer area, I should say, versus what they're proposing is 5 foot left over to be in grass, which will be 0.04 acres, basically 1,605 square feet, give or take a few feet. Basically, to relocate the buildings in any other area would essentially change the whole prospect of this plan. Number one, finding another place for parking space and for a commercial building, given the other things that are preserved, does not appear to be an available option. Number two, reworking phase 1 would further jeopardize the profitability of the entire project. And the only way to eliminate space for parking would be to provide, and I already said this, for relocate the spaces, which does not appear to be feasible. And last, or near last, the Legacy project was designed with a certain amount of aesthetics in mind. And one of those was to have a commercial building on both sides of Legacy, leading you into, from your perspective, into the fountain area. And this would certainly, any movement would upset that. And there was another one that's probably is the most important one, and I'm looking for that. The commercial element is the part of the project that's the principle that makes the project mixed use. I have been asked a number of times, why is the project still considered mixed use? And the reason has been that the proffers require, number one, provision for services for these future phases that will come in that do make the project mixed use, such as the commercial, such as the apartments. So it's a pretty important element of the planned unit development mixed use project that they have here. So, with that said, that's probably about all I've got to say on the matter, as far as that goes. I'll be happy to take any questions, obviously, but.
Okay, Wally, thank you.
no questions, I'll simply comment, this would bother me more than any, I really don't, I don't care for it, but I don't see an option. I think the commercial is extremely important. I think that's probably one of the key parts of the whole development. I would only ask that if this is approved, that we do everything, the developer do everything we can to minimize the incursion. In other words, if 5 feet can be increased to 8 feet or 9 feet or something, in reality, I think every little bit helps in everybody's mind. That's just my particular opinion. I do think that the commercial elements are real key, in my opinion.
I think that this is a different animal than the last modification request because it does abut either research and development or a commercial property. So I think that it's a compatible use in the adjacent property. And I do think that, as outlined in the ordinances, that the modification would be consistent with the intent and purposes of the planned development district. And I think that there's a compelling reason, as you said, to ensure that we maintain commercial. I think there's for the city to approve that.
Would the developer consider porous pavement in this area as a way to mitigate the runoff?
Probably not, Ms. Fenixon. We've not had good luck with porous pavement. It doesn't hold up well. I must point out on this, we said before, we never anticipated these buffers when this project was approved, other than the modifications that we got along Woods of Tab and behind City Hall. If you look at the plan, it's obvious there was never a buffer contemplated, ever. There are no wetlands in this area. They're back in here, but nothing here. So I think it would be an expensive, not very effective fix. We just not had good luck with it. I'm not a fan of porous pavement.
The comment from, just when I remember our engineering team saying on previous developments, permeable pavers are not considered highly by them in the city of Poquoson because they, for one, require extensive constant maintenance, and for two, don't really work well given the quality of our soils. It doesn't absorb water very well.
I think the discussion with buffers, conversation from last time, is just not. I think in our area, the tree buffer is really an important part of that water runoff. So we're looking at a paved parking lot, impervious surface. Yes, we do have the two property that's undeveloped. We do not know what the potential might be in the future for that. So again, I know I echo sentiment. It's a strange configuration. You have to try and engineer in there. So if there's anything to try and mitigate either the layout or the design to accommodate an increased buffer, I think would be really.
Okay. You make a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Okay, and do I have a second to approve? Okay, Karen.
Aye.
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 Aye. Before we go any further, the clerk and I have had a little conversation here about number 3, and we were a little bit confused because of we were wondering on, Kevin, when you made your motion, did you make your motion to deny or to approve?
I made the motion to vote. That's what I think I was.
Okay, because we are a little bit confused because it would be to approve or just
Making
to
a motion
approve.
to not approve.
Okay, so we may have to do that again because that'd be proper, Karen,
yes,
to
I
do
think
that
so.
again because
That
there
make- that
was a
makes
little
sense.
bit of confusion
Yeah.
on that because we couldn't quite hear, but we thought that's what you said and we wanted to make it. It
So
really.
for buffer modification number 1, the motion is to deny. And that was seconded by?
By Greg.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, so I'll just call for the vote. What,
Again,
so the
to
motion is to
clarify.
deny.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right, so you're making a motion to deny.
okay, Commissioner Emmett,
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon,
Aye.
Commissioner Travis,
Aye.
Chairwoman Schreiber.
No.
Okay, that motion carried by a vote of 5-1.
All right, so now we're going on to number 6, and that is a request for a buffer modification to area number 4 on the submitted Legacy of Poquoson Master Plan to reduce the 40-foot perimeter buffer to 5 feet in order to provide for a T turnaround at the terminus of Street A as shown on the master plan. The 5-foot buffer would be maintained as grass.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Basically, modification 4 is approximately in the area indicated by the blue, shown a little bit better on the buffer modification request sheet under number 4, which again, I hate to have to point, but it's right, well, it's up yonder. I'm not very blessed with height. So, anyway, can everybody see the number 4 on the map? Okay, good. Okay. This is about a 100-foot area, 90 to 100 feet, but I took 100 feet as the area where the T turnaround basically protrudes into the buffer area. So 100 feet, 100 lineal feet, buffer of 40 feet is 4,000 square feet. This would take it down to 5 feet in grass, as Ms. Shriver mentioned, would give us 500 square feet. So you go down from 0.09 acres or 4,000 square feet down to 500 square feet, which is about 0.01 acres. The rationale for this, again, I want to point out, like I did with the last one, we're only talking about this area of the buffer right here. The rest of the buffer will be maintained. Okay. Again, this is becoming, I know, very familiar to you, but no additional lots over 238 single-family units, 108 townhome units, and 11 cottages established by approval of the master plan. This is an attempt to limit the loss of 1 to 2 townhomes due to T turnaround location. Now, the T turnaround is required, and we had some discussion about that at the work session, but the reason it's required is that you have some lots that only have access on this, what's called Street A right now. If they actually had access like this lot does on this road, you wouldn't have to have the T turnaround. But it's an emergency services requirement, and therefore we need to meet it. It's a comment that's come up on the Phase 1 comments, and this is the applicant's attempt to address that. What I would say is that there is no, the location shown on the master plan is actually unchanged. What's changed is that we have a 40-foot buffer there now. We didn't, a 40-foot buffer was not indicated on the master plan. So that's what's changed. There is a 40-foot required buffer that will be maintained elsewhere along the east side of Phase 1. I think I already said that. The Phase 1 plan showed the location of Street A with no turnaround in order to account for the 40-foot buffer. Emergency Services made the comment that there is a requirement that they have a turnaround, so they got to do it. The granting of a modification would allow for the T turnaround in basically the same area as depicted on the original master plan approved on 8/24/15. That's really the extent to of my comments. I know there's been some talk, about some modifications to that T turnaround, and I'll sort of just leave that where it is and let the Planning Commission discuss that as they will.
Do I understand that currently that area is wooded, so we would take all the woods out and just put grass in that 5-foot?
That area on the other side of the pond is wooded, and I know that because we among staff have had many trips out there.
So in essence, what we're talking about is taking down all the woods there, because you emphasized it
Yeah.
would be a grass buffer.
I think that's true, yes. You would take down all the trees in that area.
My other question would be, I mean, I'm getting off on a tangent, but what I see in other parts of the city, Put a T down there, how are we gonna keep people from parking their boats and their trailers and their cars and all that sort of stuff in the middle of the T?
Well, we all know in times of hurricane, they certainly park it up at the city
I'm
lot,
talking about
don't they?
residents,
So,
too.
so I don't know. I would defer to the applicant on that. I know they've got some homeowners association documents that they'll approve along with this development that we'll take a look at too. But, you know,
I know when my
inside their
kids were young,
property,
they'd been
I don't have a
skateboarding
good
up there
answer
10
for you, I
days.
guess, is what I'm saying. Although I will say if Street A is going to be a public street, and I believe it's going to be, that would actually become a police matter.
Okay.
It's-
Thank you.
Questions that you have to ask on this one?
Would like to ask, I had brought up in the work session, the question if we do have any assurances that the T would be sloped away from the Oxford Run.
I'd like to ask our engineer, Ryan Stevenson, who's here this evening. He designs these, and I think he can address that much better than I can. Ryan, do you mind?
Hello. Ryan Stevenson with AES Consulting Engineers, 5248 Old Town Road, Williamsburg, Virginia. Yes, we would definitely, whether it's sloped away or not, it would be curb and gutter, and all the runoff would be collected and then piped back to a pond. So none of the area that hit the ground would actually go into Oxford Run. It would all be collected and treated in the stormwater management facility.
I guess I'm being hard-headed. I still don't understand the safety benefit. If it's really that important to have a T, you've got 2 townhouses that driveways, put them back there. I just don't understand the T. There's only one exit. You know, you can only get out one way.
Mr. Travis, we'd be happy to make the T go away. We can't.
Well, yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
really expecting you. I was more expecting the city.
If you look here at the plan that was approved, the master plan, the T turnaround is here, exactly where it's proposed. So nothing has changed there. The only reason there is if you have a dead-end street, as you know, and it just ends, there's no way for an emergency vehicle to turn around. A car doesn't have any problem. And I think you're right, the school buses, I mean, in our communities, the school buses don't go to every home, they have designated bus stops. The real issue there is police and fire. And that is if they have to come down, they have to fight a fire, they're coming down this area, and then they've got to turn around. That's the reason, the main reason for it. And for trash trucks also that are too big. So I would think those would be the main things, would be your fire trucks and your trash trucks that are simply too big. As I say, this is just an area that we had never anticipated a buffer. It's right, I mean, the T turnaround is right where it always was. And as you heard from our engineer, we can certainly mitigate any runoff or any off-site from that. So, it's the ordinance and I can't.
So, if we don't have any more questions, are we prepared to make a motion to approve or deny? I guess probably if we make one to make it one way or the other.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
For lack of second, so.
So what would you like to? Well, I'll second it. Just take it off and second it. I'll second Kevin's. I don't usually do that, but I'll go ahead and second it. You're making the motion to approve.
I am.
I'm going to second it. Okay. We'll go ahead and vote on that, Karen.
Okay, Commissioner Emmett?
Aye.
No.
No?
No. Aye.
Woman Shriver?
Aye.
That was a 3-3 vote.
Here's the thing on that. 3-3 is a lack of a recommendation to go to the city council. If the planning commission fails to make a recommendation, what happens is that since 91 days will have passed, well, let's put it this way. Let's say you can't put off the decision till later. But you've got to make some sort of recommendation on this. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You have to come up with a majority. So I might be asking the impossible here, but if not, it goes to the planning commission again for further consideration on November 18th, at which time you'll be past the 90-day review period, and it will automatically go to city council as recommended for approval by the planning commission.
Probably what we ought to do is ask what the objections are to this, this modification. Objections. This is required, is it because of the trees being cut down? I wondered about the obstruction. Personally, that was one of my, if there were a lot of trees, and I know in a number of areas where places where safety vehicles have to go and buses go, there are a lot of things that would be much better off. I'm trying to envision what this is going to be. Objections that you have in voting no.
You know,
You're against the turnaround.
there's not much I can say beyond that. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a legal person, I don't know what the legal requirements are for that turnaround. It just sort of bothers me, and I say, out where I live, you go out the end of Lee Avenue, there's a house there, it comes out to a driveway, the trash trucks back up every week, the recycle trucks back up every other week, and I've seen a fire truck go up there, and there ain't no turnaround. So, you know, I mean, I watch it every week. I watch it this morning. So I have difficulty with that, Now, maybe if that's the rule, if that's the rule, then I'm not questioning that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, if that's the rule, then I guess we have no choice. Well, yeah, we still have a choice. We have a choice either to approve it or say you have to give up some of the homes. And you know, but I just have a hard time with the basic logic of the rule. As I say, it's only 4 or 5 townhouses. We're not talking about a half a mile here, folks. We're talking about a very short distance. And it's the slippery slope. That's what I'm afraid of. You know, a couple hundred feet is not a whole lot, but it's a slippery slope, but I just don't like it. That's where I'm at. I'm afraid I wrestled with this for about 3 weeks, and I guess I'm done wrestling.
Yeah, particularly if the 40-foot buffer goes along the High Canal. I think, you know, we're making a huge exception just for one element. And well, the, you know, trash turnaround, the trucks, you know, they're big vehicles. The total T had there.
Modification for 100 feet along however many total feet that south side. I just don't think that it warrants cutting into that 35 feet deep by 100 foot wide for a turnaround. I just don't see the reason.
I'm almost tempted to put it up for another vote, just so I can now vote against it, even though I'm not, just so it won't cause them to have a problem.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the one that I was most absolutely on the fence about, and not knowing until the vote came which way to go. This.
And, you know, you could say, you know, 1 to 2 townhouses, you know, being lost in the whole scheme of certainly not a big deal for the community, but I think for the builders and the landowners, it may well be. And I agree with Bill, we could all make, modifications in, three-point turn, a U-turn, there's 6 ways to skin a cat. But, I see the 100 feet, not being an enormous session to make, especially if you know it's an ordinance for the safety piece.
That townhouse there is all done. Vote, and there is no, and therefore is no recommendation. On the 91st day, it will go forward to city council as presented, but no recommendation. Because you only have 91 days. You have to act and make your recommendation within 90 days. If you do not make a recommendation on the 91st day, this will go forward to city council without any recommendation from you. So it's going to go forward. But your duty as a planning commission is to make a recommendation one way or the other to city council.
Normally, this isn't an issue because we have an odd number of planning
Right,
commissioners.
we have.
But, yeah, but
people
tonight we
here.
have 6, so.
With that in mind, can I make a recommendation that we vote on denying this?
Recommendation.
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver?
Aye.
Commissioner Travis?
Aye.
Commissioner Fennington?
Aye.
Commissioner Emmett?
Aye.
Chairwoman Schreiber?
All right, well, we have done it. We've gotten through all the items tonight, and we're down to communications and correspondence. And keep in mind that we have recommended these things to city council and denied some also. They will be the ultimate deciding factor in this issue, and they're going to take it up on November 12th meeting. So if you have, if you want to go and present your case to them, they'll entertain this on November 12th at their meeting. With that said, we will move on to communications and correspondence. Wally, you have anything you need to tell us?
Just that Porter Creek has submitted some revised grading that might will necessitate a little bit more fill on their lots than they had in first anticipated. We're currently reviewing that. Engineering has some comments and carried under the engineering banner on that. So we're working towards resolution, but they've still got a little more work to do. Legacy, we wait on phase 2 plans, resubmit. Come in.
Yeah, share something. I'm not sure if I brought this up last month, but a while ago we met with woman Karen Firehawk of the Green Infrastructure Center. After talking with her, we're participating in a program to map our coastal forests in this part of Virginia in collaboration with the Virginia Forest Service. However, after that, we also volunteered to be the subject of study for a Green Cities Green Infrastructure course at the University of Virginia. We have a group of UVA students who are studying us. Last 2 weeks, they came for a tour of the city, and the end result is they will be preparing GIS maps of our city, of our infrastructure, and making a list of proposed recommendations, suggestions as to improve our infrastructure in the city. They mentioned that they might be coming back for a return visit in November to share a rough draft of their project, and therefore I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. If any of you wish to attend this meeting, I will notify you when that is scheduled.
My only comment is, there is a meeting, we'll combine our November, December. And that will be on, Monday, December the 2nd. We don't have any business right now, so it will most likely just be a public hearing. So that would make it 6, I guess, 6 o'clock, 6. We'll let you know for sure.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
No meeting then on the 18th of November? Okay.
We always combine November and December to one because of the holidays. January and February are messed up too.
All right, we'll go down the line here. Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to mention?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to apologize for my ignorance in that. Well, I thought I was basically saying, let's vote.
It's okay.
Affirmative or deny.
Well,
No,
we
that's
can-
all. That was
No
a good
problem.
set.
No apology necessary. Can happen. Greg?
Last two meetings, this meeting and one prior, we read a small novel with all the documentation the city's provided as well as all the documentation that the city. And the decisions made by myself, and I believe the rest of the commission, difficult ones to make and took many hours to.
Okay, very good. Yes, I believe that's probably very true. Bill?
I just really kind of quickly, I'd really like to ask the city to soon take a good look at this section 8.4-5A of the PUD agreement, because that's the one that Wally kept talking about, where it says, provide a 40-foot wide landscaped or naturally wooded buffer. I am sure that the intent of that was that if it was wooded, it stays wooded, and if it's not wooded, if it's dirt or a baseball park or something like that, it has to be landscaped. I agree that the wording is kind of vague, and I would really like to see the city take that on and try to clear up that vagueness, and we might be able to clear that up before the contractor starts work on that section out there. And I realize he's bought the property and he could probably get around this, but quite frankly, I think leaving it wooded would save him money and time, as opposed to landscaping something that's wooded. I don't know if that would fit in, but even so, there are other possibilities that could become PUDs later on. I would like to see us address that, or see the commission address that.
Took my idea, so that was my sentiment too. I think we've been discussing sort of a clarification of what constitutes a buffer. And it would seem to me with raw land, we've got a wonderful asset with these mature trees that should be preserved. And so, with a 40-foot buffer, again, it could have been a cost-effective way for the developer to, to reduce his site planning expenses. But I do think that needs a clarification. That concern, I guess, between landscaping and existing property.
I'm excited to hear about the study being done and its green infrastructure, and I'd be very much interested in learning more about that. So thank you for the offer of letting us sit in and observe that.
All right, and Wally, did you want to?
Just
Reply
some
to
brief
that.
comments. City manager and I started talking about the need to address this. So it's not a new revelation to us. We have two ordinances that essentially deal with the same thing. We've got planned unit development generally, and then we've got planned units development mixed. The planned unit generally is like an umbrella ordinance, so it does make it quite confusing. But the thought was that certainly legacy land under the PUD MU and the Planned Unit Development District, if I'm saying that right. You know, it wouldn't affect them. Essentially, they're in. But we know that there's some needed changes, but there's likely a hesitation to really begin any comprehensive review until we've kind of cleared. That's about the only comment I'd make.
All right, with that said, we will adjourn this meeting and thank everybody for their comments and input. Thank you.